Amazing. So, very quickly moving into the next segment of our webinar today. As I mentioned, that the webinar today is focusing on a career spotlight series. Today's topic is our AI-driven future. And these series will actually help to bring out all the career related questions that you have, bring out answers to those, and as well as talk about how you can achieve that even with the Horizons courses by pursuing them in summer 2025. And what's amazing is that you actually get your queries answered directly from the horse's mouth. And here it's the faculty, it's the experts who are conducting these courses. So, welcome, Professor Debayan, and welcome, Professor Alok. Thank you for joining us today. Very quickly introducing you, taking the liberty to make a small introduction. Professor Debayan is a faculty in computer science at Ashoka University. He is also a board member in multiple tech startups and a visiting faculty at MIT. He has done his PhD in computer science from Yale University, and he will be your faculty for the course on AI for Tomorrow's World in the Horizons program. Moving on to Professor Alok. Professor Alok is also very passionate about computer science, and he's a faculty in the computer science department as well at Ashoka University. He is a research scientist and a research engineer, so that's what he's been at some amazing tech labs, and he pursued his PhD from University of Pennsylvania. And he will be conducting a course on mathematical foundations of computer science in the Horizon Summer 2025 program. So, welcome to both of you, and over to you if you want to add something to your introduction and get connected with the audience.
Thank you, Aditi, for that kind introduction. Happy to be here and happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, pretty much same here.
Thank you, thank you. So, how we're going to do this, right? Before you get to ask your queries and questions, I am going to bring out some questions which I am very curious about. We'll try to have a quick chat with faculty to get the ball rolling, and then we'll be taking in your questions. So quickly getting started with some of the queries we have, or I have. So I think very sort of excited to know, what takes me back to understand is why people do what they do, is their motivation to do what they do. So I think the first question I'll pose to you, Professor Debayan, if you could tell me a little bit about why did you choose to pursue a career in computer science and its related fields?
Oh, that's going to be kind of hilarious, actually. Uh, some people pursue a career out of love of the subject. In my case, I think it was closer to hatred of everything else. I think, like many standard Indian kids, growing up, I found that I was getting reasonably good marks because if I didn't get reasonably good marks, parents will get angry, and therefore I was getting reasonably good marks. That was the only reason. Uh, Anything not to do with school, I put in a lot of time in. I would read a lot of books, play a lot of games. I was heavily into video games, and that's where I put a lot of time in. And at the traditional age of 16 and class sort of 9, 10 around that time, I was told that I could do anything I wanted in life. I could become a doctor or an engineer or worst case, an economist, right? And we had a second cousin who's a lawyer, so that's also all right. So I looked around and looked at all the options available to me, and I actually did it in a very empirically reasonable fashion. I went to a second-hand bookstore and I said, "Give me all the books for different subjects. Give me the biology textbooks." And I stacked all the books for all my pathways and measured the heights. And I picked the subject with the lowest height, which happened to be computer science. And then I was like, okay, look, this first of all is empirically reasonable, and secondly, it's also a subject I don't hate. So, for example, at the time, I hated chemistry. Now I do work with chemists. I do actual chemistry work also, just for fun. But at the time, I despised it. So I was like, look, this is I like this subject. I don't hate it, at least. And this is a subject that, the height is low enough to pass the bar, so to speak. Um, so I started looking at it, and I found that after first year, I think it was I studied in school for no good reason. I'll be completely honest. It was only in my first year of college that was the first time in my life that I actually enjoyed studying something. Before then, I had excellent teachers. I went to a very good school. Everyone was very nice, but I didn't like studying. It was like, you study because your parents tell you to, and then you go play football because that's what you want to do. And I think it was in my first year of college, halfway through the first semester, I was like, this is amazing, right? Before that, it was always stuff outside of school. So I used to go to all of these math Olympiads and things of that variety. But as long as it was outside the school syllabus, I was happy. I had a mental block of sorts. And I think it was in my first year of college that I broke that mental block. And I got absolutely fascinated. I wanted to learn everything about everything in the subject. And somehow I ended up doing reasonably well. And here's where I am. So that's sort of the background. I will say about my specialization. Um, I started out, of all things, in robotics, actually, robotics and AI. And then you'll remember just over a decade ago, the Edward Snowden thing happened, right? There was a lot of stuff going on. And then I really got into security, right? Cryptography and computer security. So now I sort of straddle both things. I do cryptography and computer security, and I also do a little bit of AI stuff. So that's sort of where I am.
So thank you so much, Professor. That really helps. I think lovely to know the journeys we go through and how we get where we get. And it's amazing because in high school, nobody thinks about it, that this is where we will be. So posing the same question to you, Professor Alok, I know your interest in maths and your interest in probability and game theory and computer science and everything sort of backed up together to you towards your research and your project. So if you could tell me why did you decide to pursue a career in the field of computer science?
Sure, definitely. My story is not as fun as Deviant's. I did not measure any books. I was good at math, thankfully, and that meant that by doing least effort, I could get away with a lot of math. So I ended up deciding that I will do a degree in math. It was also kind of strongly advised by my parents. Maybe my parents are similar to Deviant's parents. I don't know if they spoke at some point, but I liked math. I liked it enough to do a bachelor's degree. I did not understand why anyone would go through the JEE engineering system, so I chose not to do that. Sheer laziness, I think. But mathematics is what I was good at, so I did an undergrad at Chennai Mathematical Institute. I right now happen to be in CMI, so I can just show you around my undergrad. It's very green, which is what I love about Chennai. So just visiting Chennai for this weekend. And here we had a lot of proofs. And as you know, writing proofs is a slow process. Writing programs is a fast thing. You can write programs and you can validate things very easily uh, if you are doing things right. So if you're doing things correctly, in some sense, programs are like proofs. So turning from reasoning about mathematical objects, I moved to reasoning about the correctness of programs and a topic called program verification, where you want to build automated systems to check correctness of programs. During my PhD, I was building up on it when I started working on something called program synthesis, which is, let's say we have a description of a program that we want. Is it possible to automatically generate such a program? So a lot of you might think of it directly as AI. It is AI, but it is different from AI in the sense that we are emphasizing a lot on correctness. Just like Debayan works a lot on security and privacy, where correctness is paramount. My work is focused on how do we generate programs which are correct. So started with math, moved around, and I still think I'm doing some kind of applied maths. It's just that it is wrapped up as computer science. That's exactly what my courses will also talk about, the mathematical foundations of computer science.
Great. Thank you so much, Professor Dabayan. And what is very interesting in both your stories is that parents played a big role also, so to drive you in one or the other direction. So I'm hoping some parents today will, definitely get encouragement from your story. Um, I think moving on to the next question very quickly, and this is more for you, Professor Danok, before we move on to Professor Bayan. And please do take a minute to think about this because it really matters what will motivate a high school student, right? So if I had to ask you that why should a high school student even learn about computer science or its related disciplines today? Like they are in ninth grade, 10th grade, struggling with studying, probably even math or social science or physics. So, to think about that how our education system in school is also already full with so many things, then why should the student actually even take out the time to learn about computer science and its related disciplines, including AI, including machine learning, at this point?
Thank you, Aditi. And on the chat, I see a very similar question from someone who shares my name, Alok. That is it worthwhile to do coding at school level? So, Aditi, you mentioned computer science at large. Alok is talking about coding in a very particular sense. Does it help in any way? Does it make sense in any way? And I would say yes and no both at the same time. Yes, because computer science is changing the world in ways unimaginable. And perhaps by the time the students right now in high school, maybe ninth or 10th, will graduate from with an undergrad or master's or PhD, whatever they want to do in life, or even just when they graduate from high school, computer science will play a more important role than it does today. What computer science does for us is it enables us to duplicate a same process at different levels. So what I write in my computer can be run in your computer. It's a program that can be duplicated at every level, and it is fast. Computers are much faster than what humans can do. But effectively, that's what they are. So you have to emphasize on getting the programs correct, which is the human part of computers. So often it feels like AI is just taking over, but it is us who are building AI, things like Vishwajit just presented. In that sense, it is important to understand what are these factors that are changing and evolving in the world and how we can play a role in that. On the other hand, it is very important to emphasize on foundational knowledge. So I am of the opinion that if you had to pick between doing computer science and let's say doing fundamental math and focusing on your foundation courses at the high school level, you can focus more on mathematics because that is the principles around which computer science is built. Skills like coding, which is what Alok asked, are some things that you can pick up maybe over the summer, maybe over a break, as a part of a fun project that you do for one of your high school courses or just out of curiosity. They are not, they are just skills, they are not foundational knowledge. So anyone can pick up coding. If I did not know how to code when I started my undergrad, and I learned it in the first semester. And in any university across the world, there will be enough coding courses that you can pick up. So you're not missing out if you've not learned how to program, how to code. But fundamental understanding of mathematics is paramount and irreplaceable. Partially answers your question, Aditi. I don't know if you have a follow up.
Yes, it does completely, right? Because it also helps to understand how multidisciplinary aspects come into the creation of what computer science is actually doing to today's world. Thank you so much. And I think moving on to you, Professor Debayan, what would you tell a high school student? Why would you tell a high school student to learn about AI or learn, like even pursue the summer course on AI for tomorrow's world? Or why should a high school student be interested in this field? Why is it so important? Why is it important for a high schooler? I think that's a simple question.
So look, as a high schooler, as far as I'm concerned, and this is coming from a person who doesn't consider himself the best high schooler. Like technically, I got very good marks and everything, but I was a bit of a prankster, right? Um, I would say there's sort of a balance you want to achieve. Okay, on the one hand, you want to get your fundamentals absolutely rock solid. It is better to have someone who like if you take a math class series of math classes in class 9 and 10 and you're absolutely solid on induction, that is better than being half solid on 15 things, including, oh, I know a bit of calculus and I know a bit of this and I know a bit of that. No, like get your basics absolutely rock solid. Okay. um the second part is to use that love that you have inculcated, because you love of a subject is a there's a cycle to it. You get good at something and then you like it and then you learn more and so on. To use that foundation to explore, right? So that means that when if I'm really, really, really solid about a particular sub area or a particular foundational idea, I'm going to look at everything in the world and see how it is applied. Okay. Um, that balance between getting your fundamentals solidified and exploring is something that's going to be slightly different for every person, right? Um, that's where these kinds of sort of short-term courses come in, because you can't possibly learn everything about everything. There's too much, right? So I would say during school time, sort of during your semester or whatever, get absolutely rock solid on your foundational ideas. And during the summers and winters, go explore fun things, right? Go build a speaker or a microscope. Go try and understand, oh, I'm going to build a telescope and I'm going to figure out how to track things, because the Earth's moving. So if you want to take a photo of something, your telescope had better be moving at the same rate. How would you design that? It doesn't need to be something complicated like what I said. How would you design, I don't know, a car seat belt? Right? There's got to be something that comes along. Can't be something that sort of can't be something too finicky because it has to survive a car crash. How would you design that? Right? Um, it doesn't need to be something physical. It can be a piece of math. Just get interested and have fun with stuff, right? But the act of having fun needs to be a meaningful act, right? It's the difference between someone who says chocolate, 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 and hopes chocolate will fall from the sky versus going to the store and getting some, right? So explore, but explore meaningfully. And the only way to explore meaningfully is to get your foundations absolutely rock solid, right? Like, Vishwajit was showing a matrix, right? One of the first things I ask, when I'm talking to high schoolers, I work with high schoolers quite a bit. Many of them work with me to get, there's things like the Journal of High School Science and so on. So people try and publish in those places. Um, and one of the first things I explore and see is, do they understand things like basic probability? Do they understand what a matrix is? Is it just a table? When you're multiplying, why are you doing row times column? Why are you not doing correspond? What is going on? And they're like, no, class 7 May, they had taught me this. That's it. That can't be the answer. Okay, you need to know what you're doing, or just don't do it. Right? So I think that sort of surety in your foundations is critical. And I really want to emphasize what Alok said earlier. There is a difference between foundational understanding and a skill that you pick up, right? A lot of coding stuff, a lot of library usage, let's put it that way, is a skill, right? So again, going back to what Vishwajit said, Vishwajit did whatever he was talking about, he did it last semester, right? He took introduction to computer science the semester just before that. So this is, again, he presumably, hopefully picked up quite a bit and then applied it. It's not that hard. The whole point is to have fun while you're doing all of this.
Right. Thank you so much, Professor Ban. I think both the points really take us back to the fact that get your foundations right and think about which skills you want to build today and which skills you can build later to apply those. And of course, Alok, thanks for posting that question. We will be opening it up for questions, but we've noted your question and we'll take that up later. And this my next question is actually going to align with the question that Alok has posted in chat. Is that if you had to really, talk about the top two, three careers, or let's say even the future career options, for students who are interested in computer science but also in other subjects, what are some future career options, which are available to students today if they pursue computer science, and of course, very particularly AI as well, because that's the one of the fields that's picking up the most in computer science. So, what are some future career options available to students who will enter the workforce, let's say, probably 5 to 8 to 10 years later? What are certain future careers that you foresee? And I would like Professor Bayan first you to answer that, and then move on to Professor Alok.
Okay, I'm not an astrologer, but I'll give this a so here's the caveat here. Things are moving really, really, really fast. Okay. Uh the world is just getting faster and faster. Just to give you, you're telling me, oh, predict what will happen 10 years in the future. If you asked me this 10 years ago, 2014, 15, I'd have been wrong, right? 2004, 5, I'd have been wrong again. I mean, think about it, 2004, 5, right? Versus 2005 versus 2025. If you tried to predict what are the subjects I should learn, what are the sub areas that I should focus on to get the highest salaries, if you look at the top 10 salaries in the area right now, even within sort of computer science, not only would you have been wrong, you'd have been wrong about, let's say, 9 out of 10. So not just wrong, but very, very wrong, empirically so, right? Uh, what I think is really, and you can see this in terms of the job preferences. I was just studying this not too long ago because I was talking to some people who were applying for jobs and so on. And I was looking at when people negotiate their job contracts, what are the things that they're looking for in the industry, right? When they're switching jobs. And it used to be that people used to look at just how much money am I getting? Is there a company car? What are the perks I'm getting? What are the healthcare plans and so on and so forth? Right now, people are negotiating much, much more for flexible work hours. They're negotiating much, much more for reskilling opportunities. Will the company pay for me if I go do a master's somewhere? Things of that variety. So there's a complete sort of sea change in job preferences, and that reflects a change in the way jobs work. Okay. If you thought that becoming a reasonable quality code monkey is okay, I mean, that reveals my opinions about just pure coding, is going to be good enough to have long-term job security, think about it this way. Suppose you're a reasonably good coder in C or Python or whatever. Okay, those are both languages that I really like. You join a job at age 22, 23, 24. You work for 10, 15 years. Okay. And every couple of years or every year, you get a bump in salary because you're doing your job really, really well. Now you're in your late 30s, right? Why will a company keep you around if they can hire someone who knows the latest languages better than you do for half the cost? Okay, they'll just replace you. And that's what we are seeing in the industry. There's a lot of 40-year-olds being laid off. So you cannot just say, I'm going to be good at coding or whatever, right? There needs to be something deeper than that. And this involves, obviously, part of this is interpersonal relationships, making sure you're the person who understands the whole system the most, yada, yada, yada. But it also means having the ability, A, to reskill quickly, and B, having a sort of depth of knowledge in some particular sub area. If you're the databases guy, right? Like this is, Arpita is the person everyone goes to when they have a databases problem because she understands everything about what's going on in our company database system, right? That's real job security. Like they'll change CEOs, but they won't change you, right? That then becomes much more important. If you ask me to predict, I will say the following things. And I'm really sort of sticking out my neck here. Number one, build deep expertise in a particular narrow sub area and get really, really, really good at it. right? And make your learning complete in that area, right? Um, Build a portfolio, like build real things. Don't build sort of small artifacts that just go on your GitHub. Okay, that's point number one. Point number two, understand if you're really looking at it from a pure industry perspective, understand what industry works. Go talk to people. All right. I can tell you that right now there's a lot of people who are unable to find the right employees. They just can't. They're looking for someone that understands, let's say, AI plus ethics, because they need them for their internal oversight boards. So, because if you're a bank, you're deploying some AI and someone's denied a loan. How do you make sure before that comes to pass, you need an AI safety person who can look at it? So you need someone who's a tech expert who can work with a lawyer or a group of lawyers to make sure that you're compliant, right? And who understands the legal and ethical aspects of things. And I'm talking sort of ethics of from an AI angle, right? And they can't find these people. And they're willing to pay whatever amount of money. They're like, look, if I don't do this, I can't deploy this tool. And I already spent $50 million developing this tool. So I don't have a choice. I'm willing to pay whatever amount of money you ask me for, but I can't find the people. Right? So my guess is those requirements, those compliance related requirements are going to increase significantly. So people who are capable in those areas are going to do really, really well. If you're getting into pure sort of AI design, sort of getting into LLMs properly, my guess is you're going to need to do a lot of higher studies. You are not going to be able to compete otherwise. All right. Just an undergraduate degree is going to be insufficient if you're sort of really getting into the meat of it, so to speak. So I'll pause there.
Sure, sure. I think that really gives a lot of perspective because the idea of deep diving or depth, getting your hands dirty to build things, I think that really reinforces that how those are the things which kids, students can do today to even prepare themselves for the jobs we don't even know will exist 5 to 8 to 10 years later in the field and what will be growing in the field. Thanks so much. And thank you for re emphasizing the importance of ethics and AI and how people are not focusing on the softer aspects such as ethics, which are so important in bringing out the impact of AI. And Professor Alok, moving on to you, right? What you have done maths, you've done CS, you've connected the two of them together. You've also brought out AI and algorithm thinking together. So, what do you think? Like, if somebody, let's say, is doing computer science but probably finds AI complicated, or if somebody is doing, wants to explore other aspects of computer science, like the Internet of Things or robotics, what would you sort of suggest that what kind of future careers can exist, and what's your perspective on it?
So I mean, Dipan has answered it so thoroughly. I don't have much to add. It's a very similar question, but certainly students should explore these different areas. I just want to re-emphasize what Dipan said, that maybe like 10 years ago, IoT was the biggest thing. We wanted to put in sensors everywhere we could find. 2 or 3 years, we built on reinforcement learning and were obsessed with self-driving cars. We just want to build self-driving cars. Then came the big blockchain boom, and everyone's just talking about blockchain and crypto till the language models take over. And then now it's all about LLMs. So I think the next thing is going to be some quantum computers for 2 years. Then for next 2 years, it's going to be something else. Then again, AI will come. And then something new will come that I can't even imagine. So in that sense, if you want to keep up with all of it, the right way is to build your foundations in computer science at large and understanding the principles behind all of these at large. Specifically though, if you were to ask Debayan to give a talk on self-driving cars, you would be able to do that. If you were to ask him to give a talk on blockchains, you would be able to do that. If you ask him on language models, you'd be able to do that. Not because he sits and studies them and does a PhD in all of them, but because he and other professors and experts in computer science build foundations in these areas. And then we keep picking up, we keep exploring, we go out of our ways to learn and understand new things. The same is true for students. So if a student wants to learn and explore and figure out what IoT is, spend a summer just building sensors. Try to understand how sensors work and how you can connect them. Is there a way that you can maybe, let's say, build a small, if you have a toy car, add some kind of a distance sensor to it and get a way that it can display things on your laptop? If it can you now use it to map a territory? Can you build something like that? Okay, can you now have a way in which you can signal it that it should stop when it comes too close to a thing? It is these kind of explorations that help you understand subjects far more than sitting and reading a book or watching hours of YouTube videos where you've actually zoned out most of the times. So it is important to study and learn courses, but a lot of hands-on skills are important at play. And if they want to further build a career in it, there are enough number of ways to build a career in any of these topics. If there are two things that you could perhaps do. One is get employed, or the other is build a startup from your idea. There could be a third or fourth way where you, for example, become an educator like Deba and Naya. But of course, there are many different ways, and there are enough opportunities in all of these areas. So even when I said that IoT was done 10 years ago and people like have moved on, there's still a lot of research that goes into cyber physical systems, into Internet of Things, and all of these topics. So you can always catch up with them if you want to build a career in it. At the high school level, I think it is too early to think about what you will build your career in. Right now, I think the emphasis in how do you just explore and even get an informed idea of what Internet of Things means. What are these things that we are building an internet of? Because my internet is on my Google Chrome browser. So what are these things? Just trying to build those ideas and connect them is far more important than thinking about who's going to give me a job right now.
Sure, and thanks so much. I think it re-emphasizes the I think what I understand, and one of the takeaways I have from what both of you said, is that the foundations don't change. Probably the foundations don't change. If a person is interested in CS or AI, then if they start to building a strong foundation, they don't change even if the technology is changing. So how those foundations can be used to build a new technology, essentially, is what I understand, and one of the takeaways. So just reinforcing that. And because you spoke about the foundations, and what else can we talk about when it's your course is also about foundations, right? So, Professor Alu, could you tell me if in one sort of line, very briefly because of the time, what is the core outcome that students will achieve if they pursue the summer course on mathematical foundations of computer science? If you had to summarize one core outcome.
The core thing they would understand is how do we reason about uncertainty? That's what probability theory is. You don't know about things in the world and you're still supposed to make decisions. Undergrad students, high school students are right now thinking, I don't know what my undergrad would look like, how the world would look like. That is also uncertainty. When a self-driving cars go out on a way, on the road, it is still a lot of uncertainty. The question is, how do we reason with uncertainty? How do we quantify it? And that's what we're going to learn through probability theory and a little bit of game theory in this course.
Thank you, Professor Alok. And Professor Bain, very briefly, if you could talk about what is the core outcome that students will achieve from the course on AI for Tomorrow's World in the Horizons Achievers program.
So I'll be slightly less brief than expected, but I'll tell you where this came from. There was a wonderful lecture about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago now, by Harvard professor, Gordon McKay professor of computer science, Matt Walsh, at the Association of Computing Machinery meeting that year. And he called it the end of programming. All right. And he was talking about how in computer science, in college, we learn about, oh, there are these things called flip-flops, and here's how things happen in the CPU, but it's actually fake. That's not actually how things happen in your CPU or GPU. There's a lot more going on, and you need like 15 PhDs to work together to even understand what on earth is going on right now, because there's so many layers of complexity. But you kind of sort of vaguely learn it from a distance, and then you say, okay, let's put all of that aside. People who want to work on like pure systems can learn more about it, but even then it's really hard unless you work at like Intel or AMD or something, or Amazon Cloud Services. In reality, then most students switch to learning programming at a high level, basically, right? And then obviously while they're learning that as a skill, that was we moved on to mostly a polytechnic structure in many Indian colleges. Hopefully they also learn a little bit of computer science, right? Those are not the same thing, right? Um, and the problem with that is that he and many others, including myself, believe that a significant portion of programming is going to go the way of flip-flop knowledge. That why would you need to write a single line of code? What you're going to be doing is something else. You learn about coding in college and school. You learn that there are these algorithms for sorting and searching and branch and bound and this and that. You learn that. You learn it once, you'll understand it, but you're not actually going to be using that knowledge, right? You're going to be using something else that auto generates all of that stuff. That's some of what Alok works on, right? Um, and that is going to mean a very, very different kind of use of AI and other kinds of generative technologies for computer science. That is also going to have an impact on all other parts of the workforce, right? Um, we've seen the very nature of knowledge change. Like 30, 40 years ago, before I was born, in my parents' generation, if you someone thought, what is Diego Maradona's father's name? And like if you didn't know, you just didn't know, you know. There was just knowledge that existed, but you just didn't know, and it was fine. But now that is no longer the case. Everything that is known and properly written down in the world, you can get immediately. The very nature of knowledge, of what it means to have knowledge, has just completely changed. Which means, this goes back to, I encourage the students to look up Douglas Engelbart and the mother of all demos, but this goes back to his or sort of augmentation research idea that why would you need to remember things? Right? What if you have this sort of hive mind like thing that remembers everything for you and you just write poetry or whatever? And we're going to get closer and closer to that idea over time, at least in some ways, not in exactly the way he thought. How is AI going to impact the very nature of work? That's what I'm going to explore in that class.
Sure, thank you so much. Just because we're on time, I'm going to very quickly open it up for questions. I know students have posted some questions in chat as well. But anybody who would like to unmute themselves and ask the question, please go ahead before we close. And I hope you're able to unmute yourself in case.
Professor, look, you were about to say something.
Yeah, let me answer Alok's question on the chat, which was posted just a bit ago, which is said an MBA therefore would be better after graduation. Is that okay, Aditi?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. So an MBA specifically is a specialized degree that makes you an administrator. And becoming an administrator, or having administrators and people with those skills are essential in every single field, in every place where you have a big enough structure which requires administration. However, that is a very specialized job, which means it is great for some people who want to do it, but it may not be the right fit for everyone. You cannot have any system functioning only with administrators, and you cannot have large systems without administrators. So if you are driven to become an administrator or want to build those skills which are essential, and you think a structured program would work for you, as well as there are some career opportunities that open up with an MBA or the kind of networks that you build in a business school, then MBA is the right answer for you. Starting off with an MBA is not a thing, and that's why we don't offer an MBA like degree at the bachelor's level. The bachelor's level, you learn some of the foundational skills that I've been talking about. So you become a computer science graduate and then you want to become an administrator, definitely an MBA could be an option for you. There are a lot of people who might do a master's in computer science after it. Some might do a PhD in computer science after it. Some might turn their ways and do something completely different. And that's completely okay. An MBA is not something that I would recommend for everyone. Not one solution fits all. Works for a lot of people.
Sure, thanks so much for answering that, Professor. Just revisiting some of the things people had. So I think we have a new question. Okay, so just revisiting a few things that everyone has posted as their expectations from the webinar. understand AI requirements, AI and its interdisciplinary aspects, AI and its career prospects. With AI coming in, what will be the few job aspects coming in near future? To understand AI better due to its future prospects. So I think we have covered a lot of it in our fireside chat. But anything you would like to specifically add to sort of answer any of the queries that were posted initially?
Saurabh Rawat at some point said AI and its interdisciplinary aspects, and Debayan spoke a little bit about ethics. Um, Interdisciplinary aspects of AI go way beyond and encompass every aspect of social and natural sciences as we know it. So, in some sense, AI is a tool and it can help us enhance all of these topics. So, right now, let's say at Ashoka, our economics department teaches AI. Our political science department teaches the course in data science and how to use machine learning to better analyze data. We have AI integrated with many, many different subjects, social sciences, natural sciences, physics, for example, because it is a tool that helps us change or transform or do things faster in these different areas. On the other side, it is these areas that inform AI. So some of you might have heard of physics informed neural networks, where we are bringing in principles from physics to improve machine learning. So in that sense, the two subjects always the different subjects have conversations, and through that we enhance subjects. So I would say it is important to learn a little bit about everything and specialize in the foundations, build upon it, and maybe in your undergrad degree, you pick whether you want to work on AI or something else. And then perhaps you do graduate school where you become a specialist in one particular thing, let's say robotics.
Oh, thank you so much. So, since we haven't got more questions in chat, I think we'd move to closing the webinar with time. So, thank you so much for these responses and coming in today to, I think, really elaborate on so many aspects of the field and also talk about the Horizons courses and how they can help students to build strong foundations in the field. Um, I would move to, I would like to bring in Arushi to close the webinar and talk a little bit about how you can apply as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Debayan. Thank you so much, Professor Alok, for being so kind with your time and responses. Thank you, Vishwajit, for sharing your capstone project with us. I would say that Horizons courses is actually that platform which allows students to test their foundations, to actually dive deeper into the concepts and actually build their profiles and construct on their knowledge. So just quickly telling that these are scheduled over the summers from May 17th to June 14th, and your deadline is April 6th, and the applications are open. So here's the QR code, and you can scan and apply right now, because we cater to smaller cohorts and we have limited seats. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for being part of this webinar, and thank you, Professor Debayan and Professor Alok, for such gracefully answering all of the questions. Thank you. Have a good day. Have a good weekend. Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye.